Everybody here. My name's John Mudd. I'm the chair of this council. Um, and I'm going to share the agenda. We have a really packed agenda as usual, but I think it's going to flow really nicely. Let me see here. We'll just pop that up. And got all these things popping up in my way. Here we go. Okay. Okay. Again, my name's John Mudd. I'm president chair of this homeless and housing meeting, and thank you all for joining us. Today we have a packed session here. Jessica from the Office of African American Affairs. Thank you for being here, Jessica. It's so packed, I think we're going to do away with all the individual introductions. So please put your affiliate next to your name. That will help. And we have the street storage, folks from street storage that's going to be here, and lots of folks from different public housing that's going to speak about their struggles. Hopefully, Jessica, I know your time's always tight. Stick around as long as you can. I have you first up on the agenda, by the way. Any disruption to the meetings, we'll just sign off and sign back in. I'll try to contain it if I can. We've had some people crash the meeting and cause problems once or twice in our whole history, so it's not a real problem. Of course, our purposes here is to come together and share our knowledge and work together and find some solutions. And council highlight. Clicked on and took a look at our annual report that was done several months ago. So feel free to do that and see what we're planning on doing. We've changed some agenda items for the year. We're working on fine tuning it, based on our capacity. We need some board members, committee members, funding, finance, and street sheets. We have this street sheets. If you don't know what that's about, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. It hosts a lot of information, our shelters, our food sources. You can go on there and find breakfast, lunch, and dinner at any time, any locations from uptown, midtown to downtown. We've been on some radio shows lately. We talked about the NYCHA and development on WBAI on a couple of different spots. And we've been on a Jose Vega's podcast. So I put Joe Vega. He'll hate me for that. The Stock Transfer Act on Wall Street, April 23rd, 2025, was quite a success. We got some press and we got some nice working group established, and Ray's here. He can kind of speak to that a little bit. In our introductions or updates, special introductions. Okay, let's our policy meetings, we've been putting that aside. We haven't really latched on to anything specific, but I think we've been talking about a few things, and we're probably going to have a real housing focused meeting, trying to develop some housing policies. Alex, let's see, Rob's not here this week. By the way, if you want to see a great interview, just click on Economic Update interview with Rob Robinson. Richard Wolff, I don't know if you guys know Richard Wolff, but he's a wonderful economist, and he's a very humane economist, and he speaks about a lot of different issues. And Rob's been on there interviewed. He's been interviewed a few times, and the recent one is a really good interview. Rob always carries himself very well, and we really appreciate having him part of our Midtown South Community Council. Let's see. Let's start with Alex. You have I know you
Yes,
have a few updates.
just two.
Go ahead.
Just two. Friday, May 30th is the hearing at 1 p.m. for the rule changes to city FEPS, and that is the voucher program, which is rental assistance, helping individuals and families find and keep housing. And that's at 1 p.m. It's not a city council hearing, it's an agency hearing. So it's DSS and HRA, and that is Friday, May 30th at 1 p.m. on Zoom only, not in person. And I'll put my email so that it can be the central source for all of these announcements. And then Tuesday, May 13th at 11 a.m. is Councilmember Chris Marte's planning fight to fight the plan to build the Gansevoort luxury tower. There's no transparency as to whether the lottery low-income tenants of that development are going to be able to have permanent affordable housing. There's always a lack of transparency, especially if it has LIHTC, and we have the poster child for LIHTC joining us today, John Leva. So I'll put my email in the chat for anybody to connect with these two events. That's Tuesday, May 13th at 11 a.m. And then the Senator Gennardis webinar has been postponed for tonight at 6:30. That's it.
Thank you, Alex. Adaki, John, you have you want to introduce yourself and have any updates? If you can make you got a couple minutes here if you want to announce anything or.
Okay, you go first.
You're on mute, Adalki.
Hi there. My name is Adalki. I'm a campaign organizer at Right to Council. As for announcements, I think we're almost, I don't want to say any announcements as of right now. Let me just get back to Khadijah and then I'll come back. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah. John, anything on your agenda?
Hi, I'm John Leva, Safe 63 Tiffany. I've been battling a LIHTC agreement for a few years now. It just expired actually last month on the 15th. So we're like I don't know what's happening. We have a preservation buy. We're trying to do the TOPA thing without the TOPA law. So we went through all the steps, but we really need the law to just make him, because we have a deal on the table with a nonprofit and he's just dragging his feet. I don't know if he's waiting to see what happens in Albany, and I don't know. I heard that Kathy Hoke was lowering the threshold for condos for certain buildings, but it might not affect LIHTC. So I don't know how. I got to see the details. And as far as things coming up tomorrow, we have a Good Cause rally for the 1-year anniversary of Good Cause passing with Brad Lander organizing. It'll be at 11 at City Hall Park. And if anybody would like to join us, that'd be great. I think I'll be speaking there tomorrow.
Oh, great. Feel free to put something in the chat there. And by the way, do you when you say he dragging his feet, who are you talking about specifically?
The landlord, because he already had a deal with somebody else who we didn't want. And it's funny because it was a preservation buyer who has been privatizing using PACT and RAD for housing. So I didn't want her involved with our building. So I talked to her. Plus she was using Wavecrest, which is a horrible management company. So I had to talk to her firmly and talk her out of, getting involved. She reluctantly did, and now we're just waiting to see if he accepts the offer from the nonprofit who we've been working for a couple of years now.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks. Hi, Jordan. How are you? And nice of you to join us. Some updates on your end?
Well, what I was actually going to say really quickly was something that I think would benefit the community here and maybe isn't my specific expertise, but I did want to flag it, which is we are in May, which is the executive budget hearings for city council. And I just looked up, my specialty is mental health, which is the 23rd, but I just looked up housing, which is all of your specialty, which is on the 14th. And I just put that in the chat, and I believe there's public testimony. So all of those issues that everyone's talking about and really concerned about, making sure there's affordable housing within the district, please, 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 please make your voice heard. And you don't have to go in person. You can also submit written testimony up to 72 hours after the hearing. And I know for a fact that unfortunately they make staff read all of those. So even though it may not, reach all of the elected officials, first of all, half of them don't stay for public testimony to that point anyway. It's a good way to make sure that your concerns are on the record. So I just wanted to highlight that date for everyone. And I don't want to jump, the gun a little bit, but part of why we are here today and talking about is housing. And I know we have Jessica on the line, and the state budget still is not done. And even though there's been discussions of it saying like it's a done deal, nothing has been signed yet. So I also encourage you all to call your state representatives and encourage them about the budget, specifically about moving against involuntary commitment and that expansion. But I can leave that to later.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jordan, so much. Alex, you have something else?
No, that's Renette.
Oh, Renee. Okay. All right, cool. Is there anybody else have any quick announcements? Any new people? We certainly want to hire, want to say, go ahead.
I heard that the HAVP the bill has been done. It'll start March 1st, and it's 50. I think it's 50 for 50 months. So that should be like for 4 years. That it should be a done deal. They should have signed that in the budget. That's what I heard. That's what I'm understanding.
Renette, I have heard that HVAP is in the budget. I don't know the amount exactly, but I believe it does match what the advocates have been asking for at work.
No, it doesn't match. We asked
it doesn't? Okay.
No, we asked for 250 million and she's giving us 50 million.
Okay. See, yeah, these are parts why we have to hold the line.
Yeah, hold the line. Leonard?
Two things. One is that Penn South was left off from a reduction of taxes that Mitchell-Lama cooperatives and complexes have been given under the state budget. And so there's an effort by Penn South residents to get Penn South included, which would help us because we're teetering on the edge of an abyss because of the increases in maintenance. We've just had a 10% increase in our maintenance, and for people who are living on Social Security, that is a severe hardship. So there's an effort among Penn South people to get this, to get us included in this 50% reduction in taxes. That's number one. Number two, there is a left labor project that was responsible for the huge May Day rally that took place on May Day, which was the largest May Day that we've seen in decades. And there's a follow-up meeting on May 14th, and I will send the notice to John so you can send it around to all the participants here, John.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks, Len. Thanks so much. Again, everybody put your affiliated in. So we're gonna, if there's no one else, anybody new here that we want to say hello and
Hi, new. Yeah.
Hi, Caitlin. How are you?
Caitlin Cahill. I'm part of LEAPS and part of the Chelsea community in solidarity with the struggle around the demolition of public housing, which I know we're going to talk about soon.
Great. Okay. All right. And I'm trying to rope Caitlin into our council. So again, I need members. I need committee members. I need some board members too. We've got lots to do and lots of fights to be involved with. With that, I'm going to start with Jessica. She's our first speaker, And I'm so happy she's here. She's with the governor's office, and I've talked with her a few times, and she's very compassionate about what she does, and she's very sincere. And I appreciate her coming on and telling us about her office and how she can maybe help the community and what kind of resources we can get from her. Jessica?
Thank you so much, John. Once again, my name is Jessica Douglas. I am the Director of African American Affairs for the Executive Chamber, which is under our Governor, Kathy Hochul. So this position has been vacant for quite some time prior to me getting here. And it's been about a year since I've started. And it was a challenging year. Not because of the position itself, but because of life. Unfortunately, as soon as I got the job, I got hit by a car. So it kind of delayed me a bit in terms of really taking off and doing the things that I want to do. But now I'm doing better, and now I'm trying to be more involved in getting around so people get to know me. So I've been around in government for over a decade now. I've worked for different elected officials. I've worked for non-for-profits. So I'm very well-rounded when it comes to my thinking, as well as to how to advocate for people and to also be compassionate and understanding. So my role in this position is to basically be a voice to the governor as to what the chamber is pushing, but also to be a voice for the people, particularly African-American and Black diaspora, as to how what is happening in Albany is affecting people throughout the state. So I do not really do constituent work, but I do track trends. And if there's a population that's being affected, and just because I work with Black people does not mean I do not care about others. I will connect you and I will advocate for you as well, right? The team that I am a part of is a very strong and passionate team. So I don't want people to be like, I'm not going to engage with her because she only deals with Black people. Like, no, still engage with me. I will still help you. My heart is big and it's for everybody. It's just that the title is African American Affairs. So it's to be your voice to take back to Albany, because sometimes I like to say that most people like to do things with the best intentions, but they see things from only their experiences and their point of views. And it's a bias that everybody has. But I try to be as open as possible. And sometimes I will challenge your thinking just so I know how to advocate it back. And if I don't agree with you, I'll be like straight up, I don't agree with you. But just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that I will not take that back to Albany. I challenge you because I want to understand your experience. And I want to see how I could best take your stories to the people that needs to hear it the most. And sometimes I'll bring you in the room with me. There's space for all of us. And sometimes it requires to be creative. I always say that government doesn't come with a handbook, and how successful you are is based on how creative you are to get things done. And I have a great track record of being creative. I have a great track record of listening to other people and to bounce things back and forth. And sometimes it's just a no. There's nothing I could do about it. But one thing about me is, although I work for the government, I feel like I'm one of very few people that does more work after the clock is done, right? I'm a member of the NAACP. I was in leadership. I just stepped down. I'm a member of sorority because I realized that government does not have the answer to everything. And sometimes I have to put on a different hat to get stuff done to make our city and our state greater. So I'm a great thought partner if you ever want to run something past me. And if I am able to help and assist, I am able to help and assist. If I'm not, I always try not to leave people right where they are. I work with them on ideas on how they can move forward without me. And if they want to come back to me, which people tend to do, come back to me and then we can figure out some more things. So that's all I have to say for this moment in time. I also have a newsletter that I am building out and trying to be more engaged to let people know what's going on in the state. And many people look at it and then they ask, oh, how can I get plugged into here? And I will try my best to plug. And it also has like job opportunities, scholarship opportunities, and just things that we are doing. So I encourage you guys, once I drop it in the chat, to sign up and communicate with me more. And I'll also leave my information if you want to do one-on-one meetings or if you want to do check-ins. I'm 100% open to that. And I see Alex has his hand up. He sent me, and I was like, man, I got to get to this email. Anytime I'm ready to start, I get pulled into something. So I see your email.
No, you know what, Jessica, you already addressed something because I noticed under your signature you had a link that allows anybody to block off a block of time with you. So would you share that with us if you don't mind?
Almost certainly, I will definitely do that. It's in like almost every email that I send. So sign up for my email. I'm gonna let them sign up for my email list to get access to that block because I need people to sign up for my email list.
And I'll try to find some way of forwarding you some time on our newsletters, links and so forth. I'm happy to do that. I want to do that for Dina too. She gives us a lot of housing information. And how come you don't have a handbook at this time? And could you give us an example of how you progress something someone had come to you? Is that possible? So we can kind of visualize it. For me, yeah, I like to hear someone else's story of success.
Yeah, I gotta think that one.
I think
If I can't think of anything now, I will write something. I will send it to you and you can forward it. But I really have to think that one through.
okay, no worries. And I saw Marquis had his hand up. I think I saw.
Yes, thank you. You asked my question, John, and if I'm in, and I do recognize you said you're adjusting to the role, but I am curious to at least know sort of some of the areas that you plan to focus on, or if you're even at that stage. And then there is I don't know if it was past or what, but there was um I always remember through 7 Acres and a Mule. Was it a reparations committee that was formed? Are you playing any role in or informing any of that process?
Okay, I'll start with reparations. You're gonna have to remind me the first part of your question. So Reparations Commission is an independent commission. So I try to stay as far out of it as possible because once their report is done, we don't want to hear that the governor's office has influenced any part of it, depending on however it turns out. So I will probably advise on like operational things, like where they should go next. Even if I even do that, because I don't even do that per se, but I try my hardest to stay out of it because we don't want to hear, depending on how the report is going to go, because, you know, nobody likes 100% of anything that the governor's office influenced. The only thing that the governor's office has really done is to appoint the commissioners and provide some funding for it, and to just equip them and empower them to go throughout the states and have their public hearing, which one is happening today. The most I will do actually is send out the notices as to when it happens. But there's one that's happening today in Old Westbury, SUNY Old Westbury, at, let me tell you the time. Yeah, so I was gonna put it on my calendar and I keep forgetting. Hold on a second. I want to say it's at 4. Give me 1 second.
Sure, take your time. Alex, just watch the chat if you would, see it, and, if you see anything interesting. Len, if you can help out there too, that'd be great. And Luana.
So it is from 4 to 8 p.m. at SUNY Old Westbury. Address is 223 Store Hill Road, Old Westbury, New York. I will put this info in the chat.
Great.
And what was the first part? I don't want him to feel like I didn't answer the first part of the question.
Oh, no, thank you. It was just around the areas that you are focusing on or will focus on.
So the answer to that is everything dealing with the Black diaspora.
I'm sorry.
That means everything.
Oh, good. I missed that.
Oh, I said he asked me what areas do I plan on focusing on. I said everything dealing with the Black diaspora.
Okay, very good. I think Jordan, you've got a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that's a kind of a good segue to like my specialty or kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit and ask just like, and I want to preface this by saying like I know that individual staffers' opinions don't necessarily always align with the governor. So let me preface that. And I appreciate you and your service and your commitment in this role. So I work at a supportive housing agency that community access, and we offer wraparound services for people with mental health concerns. And one of the things that we're really concerned about is the expansion of involuntary commitments, both inpatient and outpatient. And I will be transparent that I am one of the advocates who's been holding up the budget, like that have met with your colleagues. I can't remember their name, but the ones who are in the mental health part of the governor's office who kind of wrote some of this stuff. And what I really just want to highlight, especially in this context, and I put this in the chat before, is there are two papers that have come out. I didn't put mine in yet, but I put it in the New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, which was about the impacts of Kendra's law. And one of the things that we found is that there's actually a disproportionate impact on people of color and specifically housed people of color. Very often when we think about involuntary removals in this discussion, the conversation tends to, and also what connects to this group is, Times Square, individuals who are unhoused may have mental health issues. And what I always say is that, what may seem like a crisis for a lot of us is someone just living their life and surviving. And there's that kind of difference of also, recognizing what an actual crisis looks like when every day of your life is a crisis. So to just kind of, put this forward, I guess what I'd love to hear from you is like, what are ways that, we can support your office also, or you to kind of potentially push back on the governor or have conversations about like the importance of really investing in a continuum of care that doesn't only penalize people, because I think part of the issue and is that there aren't enough services, right? Like, and that there's just this cycling in and out. And even with involuntary removals or inpatient hospital stays, when people are released, they're kind of left to the same circumstances upon, when they first were brought in. And if anything, they may have more trauma now, or even, if they are quote unquote stable on medication, like if you don't have a place to rest your head, like where are you going to get that medication from, right? Like I have a place to rest my head and I still am not good with my medication every day. So I know that's a lot, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there. And again, thank you so much for your work and your commitment.
It's okay, Jordan. I love to hear from people a lot or a little bit. I hear from them. I like to hear. So I think this needs to be an offline conversation. I remember I sent John some stuff on involuntary confinement. I think that was what I sent you, right? Early on with some stuff on, and I
was looped in later, and yeah, that was.
Okay, let me finish. So I sent stuff and we were open, and a part of it was like we were open on taking meetings to discuss more about it. But I think you hit the nail when you said it's all about resources. So this thing looked like it's gonna happen. So we have to really be creative on bringing more resources to the people who's going to be affected most by it, so that they don't end up in a more traumatic space. So we could meet, we could talk offline, and we could talk about what resources that needs to go where and start building a conversation on that, so that I could take that back to Albany. And if they go back, then I come back to you and be like, this is what I'm hearing. How can we do more? I'm not saying things gonna happen 100% of the time, but I will say I will advocate.
Totally. I appreciate that.
Jessica, is there after you discuss these things, maybe we can also come together as to discuss further with the principles that are behind this law, or may even have a discussion here to inform the public. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense for us to continue the conversation.
Okay, good. We'll put that on future agendas whenever you guys feel comfortable. Okay, great. Super. If there's any pressing questions, feel free because we have to move on to our next. Go ahead, Len. Nice.
Jessica, I just wanted to recommend a book to you. There are actually two, and these are both on policing. One of them is entitled Policing White Supremacy, and the author's name is Mike German, and it is a book that he wrote. He was an FBI agent and went undercover for 10 years in right-wing organizations and wrote a book about his experience. And it tells a lot about policing and how policing impacts people of color and protesters. And I think it's a very good book. I think you should read it, and I think you should recommend that the governor read it. And the second book is called Propaganda, and it talks about how the media shapes how the public feels about criminal justice. And I think it is a very good book, and the author's name is Alec Karakatsanis. And I can send you the links if you wish. But I think both of those books are books that you would find very, very instructive and very worthwhile reading. And frankly, it would be wonderful if the governor would take the time to read both of those books.
Thank you, Len. Thank you for that. Yeah.
If you could send me the link to.
Sure.
And I'm gonna drop some links. If I forget anything, just remind me and I'll drop the link and I'll stay on for a couple of more minutes and then I have to head out to the doctor's office. So thank you so much. Please feel free to reach out to me to discuss anything. I am here and I'm available.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I really appreciate that. We have our next agenda is street storage. We have some speakers, Rachel Wolf, who's a founder, and Amanda Weiss with us. And let me find you. Where, Amanda, are you here? Rachel?
Yep, we're here. Hi.
There you are.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. It's obviously the afternoon here in the UK. We're coming at you from London. Thank you to Damayanti, actually, who I know as Damu, who has put me in touch with you guys today. She's one of our biggest advocates in the US. And we run a service that is effectively around storage for people who are sleeping outside, so active rough sleepers. So less about housing and shelters and refuges and more about people who are sleeping outside. I did want to give a little shout out to Amanda, who's our replication manager, but she's only a few days back from maternity leave. So I figured I would take this one for her rather than me letting her do something in New York as soon as she comes back. So she's here and she'll be listening in. I am going to have to drop off in about maybe 45 minutes, I think, because I've got another call, but I hope that will be enough time for me to run through kind of a little bit about what we do here in the UK. We've been approached by a couple of places in Manhattan. We've been approached by LA, San Francisco, and authorities and individuals in Washington as well. So we've had a couple of dip our toes into the States and the situation over there. So this is more of a presentation to tell you guys, how we work here in London and how we work in the UK, and whether there's kind of scope or need to talk about it further as a service, I guess. So it's very, very early doors, very initial information. I'm going to wait, just because I'm sharing my screen, I'm going to wait for questions until the end. So do write them down. Tends to bring up quite a few questions. So I'm going to try and share my screen now. John, I hope I can do this not being the host. So someone's going to have to probably log on and maybe unmute themselves and tell me if they can see this. And we'll give it a minute to sort itself out. If you can see the screen and you can still hear me, it would be great if someone could say yes.
I I see you in your little box there, of course, and then there we go. We've got your slides up. Okay.
Amazing. Okay, there might be a little bit of a delay, but I'll take the slides quite slowly. So that's me, obviously, we've done that bit. So what I like doing when I present to people is telling them when I'm going to finish. So when I get to what next, number 3, that's the end of my talk, and you can all pay attention again. So we're just going to talk through who we are, why we're needed, what we do, and kind of what next for us working together potentially in the future over in the US.
Rachel, just 1 second. You said something about 45 minutes. You're not.
Oh no, I'm not speaking 45 minutes. God,
Okay.
no.
Right.
Don't you worry. No, I've got 10
I thought
minutes.
we were clear. I thought we were clear.
No, we were very clear. Just if anyone has any questions, and I'd like to hear a little bit about the meeting, but I might, if I drop off surreptitiously without announcing that I'm going, I just wanted to apologize in advance for that, in case you thought I just left.
I understand. Yeah.
No, don't worry. God, no. I don't even think I could speak for 45 if I tried. So street storage, we had a little video. I think it might be quite difficult to play it with my sound here. So I'm just going to maybe switch to the next one. So I start by effectively saying I don't need to preach to the converted here because you all work in homelessness and housing, but we primarily exist to answer this question. If you had to leave your home and accommodation today and you could only pack 1 bag, what 3 things would you choose to keep? So we get people to think who are housed or who are comfortably in accommodation to think about those decisions for the hundreds of thousands of people who are sleeping outside in the US currently and who are leaving their home or in vulnerable accommodation. They have to choose what they can carry, very similar to refugees. And so we exist as a human right. We believe that it's a human right for everyone to have somewhere safe to keep their belongings, to give people back their dignity. How can you be treated the same as you or me if you have everything with you at all times? We exist to keep people safe. So to encourage safe sleep sites for people, safe use of services, reduction of crime on the street because we take in people's belongings so they're not walking around as a walking target. Obviously, not having your belongings with you at all times increases the amount of opportunities you have to access services, secure housing, and gain and maintain employment. So we give people opportunities around work and housing by taking their belongings, similar to the lack of options. And then in the UK, some of our local councils, like our local boroughs, will charge people who are homeless to see their storage. So if you're evicted from a council or social housed property here in the UK, they will go and they will put your things in storage for you, but you will be homeless and charged probably $70, I would say, conversion rate given, to see your own belongings by the local authority, by the council. So we're a kind of challenge to the commercial storage units that you have over in the States and over here. But we're also a challenge directly to the government system of not providing storage for people who are evicted at very short notice. We give people back their freedom and want them to be treated as a human being. So why is it important for people on the street? Again, might be preaching to the converted here, but obviously you're an easy target. We hear a lot of gang crime where people who are on the street are burnt or urinated on as part of gang initiations, and their belongings are stolen as part of gang initiations here in London. Also, there's a lot of homeless on homeless crime, people stealing things from other people for whatever reasons. The loss and theft of damage of key documents and IDs can set housing and employment cases back months, as I'm sure you know. People who lose their passports, people who lose their IDs, people who lose evidence of a job they've done in the past. You can't use services or sleep safely. You're in constant fear of what could happen to everything that you own, considering you've already lost everything. Judgment, that's one of the biggest ones from friends and family. Job losses, obviously, how can you maintain a job either, in a hotel or in an office or whatever it might be, hospitality, if you have to carry everything with you. And physical health. We had a woman come to us recently whose feet were so swollen from carrying her bags that she had to sit on a chair for 2 days straight with us and just to bring down the swelling. of her feet. So it's a physical COPD, lung issues, back problems from carrying your things around with you all the time. So we're here currently for probably more than I would suggest Manhattan considers, because London is a lot smaller, the issue is a lot less. We're currently available for anyone to use us who's sleeping outside, but also in any form of homelessness. So sofa surfers, shelters, refuges, temporary accommodations, prison leavers, care leavers, and people leaving domestic abuse. Now, we don't ask for ID, nor do we ask for residency status. So we can accept everyone, and we can accept everyone in an inclusive way, and we do that very deliberately. And I've put a bit of information about where we get our referrals from. So we work with national charities, the local authorities, which are effectively like our councils or our governors, the prison service, foster system, refuges, food banks, shelters, family, friends, and the people themselves. So effectively anyone and everyone can refer into what we do. So in terms of what we actually do, you'll see that it's pretty simple. We have shelving, and we have boxes, and we have lockers, and we have hundreds of them across the city. So we're the only charity that does this in the country. There are a couple of people who do it in the States and in the UK as part of existing organizations, but not solely within its own right. You'll find that a lot of the storages in the charities that you maybe work for, or the nonprofits that you work for, it's kind of like a basement room with a couple of shelves and no one knows what's in there. And the guys have had their stuff there for hours, days and months and years, and no one knows what's going on. So we're the only official service in the UK doing what we do. There is one in Philadelphia, I believe, called The Bin, but I had a problem with the optics of that because they keep people's belongings in wheelie bins, like garbage, I don't know what you call them in the United States, but we call them wheelie bins here. They're like the bins on wheels. So each person has a bin on wheels in this great big store warehouse, and it's necessary and it's really helpful. But the way that looked to people coming in, for me, I wasn't comfortable with that. So we do things a little bit differently. We don't take any funding from government or national government or local government at all. So all of our funding is grants and trusts, corporates and individuals. So no government support whatsoever for what we do, despite the fact that local authorities the government will still refer into us. So they're happy to use the service, but they're not happy to pay. We currently support about 500, maybe 550 people a year, and we're much smaller than it would be in Manhattan. So we probably look at about 320 people at any one time, with maybe four or five bags each. And we have, these won't mean anything to you, I assume, unless your knowledge of the United Kingdom is really strong. But we have 2 other locations in the UK that we opened up last year. And that's Amanda's main job, is to set up other locations of street storage units across the United Kingdom and further afield. We run a transport service, which effectively means that we have volunteers who go out and drive cars to collect people's belongings from their sleep sites and bring them to our warehouses. And we also do a kind of holistic advocacy, advice and signposting service around wellbeing, housing and employment on top of that. We have a community space, which I assume many of your organizations will as well, where people can charge their phones, get a cup of tea, and go through their storage in private. Because if you think about it, if you've got all your things on the street with you, you have no private place or private space to do that. So we fashion rooms and corners of rooms for people to actually go through their belongings in private. And then on top of that, despite being a team of 6, we also do a load of campaigning, a load of shouting at authorities and official people, more official people. We're a very small charity, a very loud one. So we do coalitions and stunts and campaigns. We lobby government. We're on a couple of government boards as well at the moment, shouting. We do a bit of street outreach as well. So we go out with, for example, sun cream and water in the summer months. And then often our staff will go out and do scarves and hats and gloves and stuff in the winter months, just checking in on people, making sure that they can live out there. And then we do a load of consultancy and press around what we do. So just a few things. Just quickly, I wanted to go through why people would be referred to us. So I'm not going to read these out. I'll kind of list them. Someone was evicted from the Home Office accommodation. So in the UK, you get given Home Office accommodation if you're lucky. You then have 56, when you get your right to remain here in the UK as a refugee, you get 56 days to find a job, find accommodation, learn the language and leave. And so we get a lot of referrals from people who aren't able to do that. So that was home office accommodation. The second one, someone went into hospital and he lost the accommodation that he was in because he was in hospital. So he lost his belongings in that accommodation. The third one, I think is probably the most kind of easy to understand is someone was homeless and wanted to go to work, but feels he can't start a new job carrying all of his luggage, as well as his work tools and his sleeping bag. So he took in his work tools and his sleeping bag and his luggage so that he could go to work. And then the last one we'll ignore because it's very UK specific. But effectively, people get referred for all different reasons: fleeing domestic abuse, going into prison, leaving care, because they had their stuff stolen, because they had their stuff urinated on. As I said before, there's loads of reasons why people's belongings aren't safe. And so obviously the sort of direct impact is pretty obvious to you guys, I would assume. Physical well-being, we've talked about. Reducing victims of violent crime, removing stigma and judgment, mental well-being. One less thing to worry about each day. I love that. Knowing that you're safe, your belongings are safe, is when you're on the street, you have to worry about where to get showered, where to get laundry, where to get food, how to sleep safely, when is your next appointment. You don't have a diary, you don't have a calendar, you don't have a phone. And it's just one less thing to keep on your mind when you're already, as someone said earlier in the meeting, like quite a chaotic situation. Safer sleep and overall freedom. This is what I emphasize slightly more, is the indirect impact that the storage service can have. Reconnection with family. We have 40% of the people who use us are actively seeking work, and 35 have secured housing. 35% a year tend to secure permanent housing. So they move from street sleeping to temporary accommodation to permanent housing, and we hold their things until they get that permanent housing. And there are tons of people who are currently working and who have re-engaged with education and rehab because we've kept their belongings, so they haven't had to take them all into a rehab room with them or a hospital bed. So it has a kind of secondary impact that's far more wider reaching than just keeping belongings safe. I'll just quickly run through a couple of these stories. So TJ went into prison and he lost his accommodation. He went into prison because he lost his wife. His girlfriend died, and he went off the rails a bit, and he robbed a gambling store, and he went into prison. And he said that he would have attempted suicide had he not come out and found his belongings were safe, because he'd lost everything else and he had no other evidence of a life before he went into prison other than us keeping his belongings. The giant dog is just under 5 foot. It is massive. We've named her Hannah. She is here because one of the people using our service, they won this dog in a fair, like at a fun fair, and they wanted to give it to his child when he next had contact with the social workers. So we are keeping this dog until he gets to see his daughter again, which is really lovely. And the final one, and this is just to show you the breadth of what people's belongings can mean to them and why people would want their things stored. Unfortunately, this is relatively triggering, so I'm sorry if this upsets people, but this is relating to the daughter's ashes of EF. EF said, "I thought nothing could make this easier, and this has." Now, she brought in her daughter's ashes because it was the only thing that she was worried about being on the street, getting wet, getting damaged, getting stolen, or getting broken. The only thing she brought to us was the urn, and the only thing we're storing is the urn. And so I don't need to reiterate why it's important. Sure. I don't think. So we've grown from obviously 475 individuals to 724 in a year. We have referral partners across the UK. We have a new site that you can see here. And we went from 10 referrals a week to 10 referrals a day for this service just in London. So our staff team has grown and all our expenditure has grown, obviously. Wow. But in terms of replication, this is the final slide. We've received requests for what we do and to consult on what we do for over 26 UK locations and about 6 or 7 in the US and abroad. And so Amanda has created a network membership model that talks slightly more about how to set it up in an area that isn't London, and how we would consult and train you guys to run that in a space in an appropriate charity for the community around you. And so ideally, the idea is that we speak to people across the world, tell them about what we do, which is what we've done, and talk further about anyone who might be able to look at spaces for this, look if there's a need, look if there's a desire for someone or a company or a charity or a non-for-profit to set this up, if there's resources, if there's capacity, and if it would help the communities that you serve. So that's us.
Yeah, no, this is excellent. We really appreciate this. I can kind of connect you with a lot of folks. I think the Coalition for the Homeless does something, holds belongings, but they don't do anything this elaborate. I believe they do offer a lot of services. They do connect people. They do work with homelessness, but I can see where it would be beneficial to connect you with them, I'm sure. And then there's lots of churches doing some great work. I think I see that you don't really have an entree into Manhattan, but I bet we could find some people to connect with you. And certainly, if there was funding, it'd be fun for us to do. Maybe we're pretty at capacity, but but maybe there's ways if the funding is there. Anybody has? Go ahead.
I think for us, it's just such a big beast. Manhattan is such a different world to London. And I want to be very clear about the fact that we do not have location-based expertise in New York. I visit New York every year, so I know it very well, but it's a completely different world. I've done some work for the US government, for the UK government in Seattle. So I've worked in homelessness in the States for a bit, but not for very long. So this would be a very, very different thing to look at, but it's just about exploring it initially, I think.
Right, right. Rachel, could you drop your slides and there, perfect. I really have to get to the next agenda. If there's any pressing questions, well, we'll certainly have her contact. We can certainly, if somebody, I saw someone saying they would love to do this. Please, put your name in the chat, and if anybody has anything pressing, we can allow for one more question. If not, I have a big discussion coming up on the public housing I need to get to. Rachel, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And
You're so welcome. Thank you for having us. We'll follow up offline for whoever is.
Sounds great.
Thanks
super.
So much.
All righty. So I'm missing someone, I'm sure. If you'll speak up, that'd be great. I know I'm missing someone for the public housing group.
You have Marquis?
Marquis is here. Yeah. Okay. So why don't we start with, I'm sure the person will start yelling at me in a second. Anyway, why don't we start with introductions and where you're, what you've been doing as far as public housing and what housing you represent. Renee, why don't we start with you, since you're close to our hearts and right here in Chelsea.
So I'm Renee Keitt. I'm a resident of public housing, the Elliott Chelsea Houses. I've been elected its president as of January. We're fighting a proposed demolition by related companies and Essence. So our goal is to keep no demolition and to stay in Section 9.
Terrific. And Marquis, go ahead. I'll go right clockwise.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Marquis Jenkins. I'm a community organizer and also a proud product of public housing. Grew up in public housing on the Lower East Side. My 9 brothers and sisters and nieces and nephews. And so for those reasons, I've been fighting to make sure that we not just preserve public housing, but that we find and sustain the adequate funding needed to preserve and modernize public housing. But even more important than that, to make sure that residents are always making the decisions about the future of public housing. And that's been my commitment, and that's what drives my work and any public housing related campaign that I focus on. So thank you for having me today.
Well, thanks for being here. Manny, you're on mute.
Yes.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Manny Martinez. I'm the resident council president for South Jamaica Houses. I'm also the Queens South District Chair, in which we have an alliance of 11 resident councils here in Southeast Queens. And my work here has exposed NYCHA and the lengths that they've gone to corrupt the system, to circumvent public housing residents, the largest low-income public housing population in the country, right? 45% Black, 45% Hispanic, 5% Asian, 3% white, and NYCHA has 0% compliance with their rights. They, instead of listening and complying with the law, have created a wall to obstruct our access to economic rights under Section 3, worth billions of dollars to our community, and currently is at zero. Also home ownership, also our ability to impact the decision and the directions of our communities. This is the reason why public housing has failed, because of NYCHA, because of the housing authority and lack of compliance. And that is a large part of what I want to discuss here. And thank you, John, for the invitation. Humble to be.
No, thank you. And as we just discovered too, HUD and NYCHA put out a DEIS, an environmental impact statement. So, I mean, you're working with NYCHA to put this out. Who's it's going to favor, right? So we'll probably discuss that. I'm sure Renee has some thoughts on that. Zulay, why don't you introduce yourself and
Hi guys, Zulay Velazquez from Jacob Reese Houses. So I represent, first I was representing the membership, the residents as a resident, fought against the privatization, were the first development that voted for PACT, and we won 2-1. So that's an accomplishment. Then shortly after I ran for TA, and I was elected. Unfortunately, the rest of my slate has to undergo a runoff, but this is where we are at today. Unfortunately, John, I'm so sorry, but I wasn't told about a meeting that's very serious. And I only have, it's the same time as this meeting, and I only have half an hour before it ends. So
okay.
I have to kind of go. But do you guys go till 11 or you go past 11?
It can run past 11. It has certainly run past 11 many times, but we don't have plans to go much past 11. So feel free to pop back on, and you have to leave now, right?
I had to.
Yeah. No worries, no
sorry.
worries. We're glad to have you introduce yourselves, and we'll seek out another
John?
What
Can I ask her a quick question?
Sure, absolutely.
Hi, Zulay. I won't keep you, but I was wondering, what is the status of your eligibility for Jacob Reese 1 and 2 for the National Historic Preservation Registry?
I don't know that question, but I will.
Well, you're on the list.
Well, ma'am, I have to hang up now, but if you, Marquis and he can follow up on Marquis if I don't make it on time. And I guess Marquis knows how to get to you. Maybe we can discuss it offline, but I need to get to the other meeting, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Zulay.
All right, you're welcome, bye.
Okay. We'll unpin this. So Marlene Williamson was going to join us. I don't see her here. And I got an email from Marquis, your friend in Minnesota. She has a vote that's going on, so she can't make it. So, but we do have some representatives here. And so where is the battle now? We'll discuss Renee's battle specifically. If we can do a quick synopsis, and Manuel will go around the room. Go ahead, Renee.
Okay, John, this is not a quick synopsis. It can't be.
Okay. All right.
So where we're at right now is we are at the draft environmental impact statement. They're trying to finalize it. So there will be a meeting at Fulton Houses tomorrow at 6:30. That's 119 9th Avenue. And also, it's also been put in the chat where you can write your comments to NYPA, NEPA, and also discuss it. What has happened here is allegedly in 2019, they were going to demolish 2 buildings at Fulton Houses. Residents fought back against it. What was then formed was called the Chelsea NYCHA Working Group. When they finally decided not to demolish those two buildings, later on that year, we were brought into the Hudson Guild and then told somehow that Elliott Chelsea was a part of it. What then happened, Chelsea NYCHA Working Group, it was only some tenants, resident association leaders and their boards, along with, how should I say, everyone else. So it was a lot of community representatives, community-based organization, elected officials, residents, a minuscule part of it. The majority of the residents were never told when they were going to have a meeting or what these meetings were about. Previous to that, they had brought residents together to discuss the things that were needed, but nobody said it was an issuance to be going into the PACT process. Go forward, Essence/related. Essence is the MWBE, and they've got the RFP. Somewhere along the way in February of 2023, a packet of flyer arrives on our door saying we had an opportunity for new construction. Somewhere along the line, a survey then issued, and it is a survey, not a vote, that said new construction and rezoning, new construction and zoning, and then rehabilitation of the existing building. Somehow, new construction and rezoning comes out to mean demolition. That happened in June. The only problem is the survey ended in May 20th. May 26th, NYCHA has a final draft plan, and on that was marked demolition and disposition. That's a 6 days. If it took till June to actually say what it was, how did they know that ahead of time? So basically, the fix was in. What we've been doing, FEC Tenants Against Demolition, had been fighting back. So, and basically getting neighbors and formed the Chelsea Neighborhoods Coalition. And then we've been continuing to fight back. So FEC Tenants Against Demolition, basically we're able to get over 949 signatures, specifically stating we are against the demolition of our homes. They have been given to our elected officials. Of course, they then call into question the valency of the signatures, but they didn't do that on the other side, and nobody quite understands. They do not, our elected officials, Eric Botcher, Tony Simone, Brad Hoylman Segal, and Jerry Nadler, all are for the demolitions of our homes. Even though at the time it was said that it would be cheaper to demolish than to rehabilitate, they are now, and now it has been said when you see the financial plan, that it costs more. At this point, we are all for staying in Section 9. It can be done through comprehensive modernization. That's the way it can be done and should be done. The reason is we are not on the end of the physical needs assessment. We are not. They came here only for the land value, and Simon Kowitsky has stated it. That's the only reason. When coming to a community board for a hearing, Jonathan, when they asked where would the money for the proposed demolition go to, they have said NYCHA will decide what to do with those funds. That means it wouldn't stay within the FEC community. That means we would no longer be public housing tenants with the correct protections, with the correct and very strong protections that nobody else has in housing, and we would become project-based Section 8. We all know Section 8 is in trouble. And that seems to get everyone upset that it will not go to the Chelsea community. That shouldn't be the thing that gets you upset. What should be get upset is that they are using us to better our community, using us to fund the rest of NYCHA, using us to do whatever they want. We are not to be used to actually fund NYCHA. We are not to be used to fund the Chelsea community. We are not to be used. We are not a bargaining chip. We are not chess pieces. That seems to be something that people do not understand. That needs to be, humanity needs to be at the forefront of this, but it is not. So the thing that gets everyone excited is how much it will cost. Related has demolished buildings and gotten away with it. And that's at 500 West 28th Street. And that's right there. They demolished the building accidentally. So, they will demolish, and then they can leave things empty and vacant for years. And then someone has to come up with the money. Frankly, we have the money for Section 9 public housing. $68 billion was just given to the MTA. The financial need of, when they hear the word 78 billion, the need for NYCHA, that's a 20-year need. We have a $6 billion right now budget profit from the state. That money could be used for NYCHA. There's been a decision. The decision is to give us over to developers. The decision is to privatize. There is no need to do that. We do not need to keep supporting related companies. We've already done that to the tune of at least $6 billion. And we know about the EB5 program, how they use NYCHA developments in Harlem to actually fund Hudson Yards. We need to stop it. We need to hold people accountable. We need to fund public housing at the level it needs and for it to continue to surviving and thriving. So where we are is a continuing fight, not just to save Fulton and Elliott Chelsea housing, but to save Section 9 public housing. Once they take down New York, they'll begin to take down the whole system. Our goal and what we need to do is fight back on all levels, because this is not just public housing, it's every form of housing that they will then do this to. Everything from rent stabilized, rent control, the 1,000 years, and it will just continue. So that's where we're at.
That's perfectly said, Renee. It really is. My sentiments are with you. When you talked about the demolishing the building, you mentioned a particular building. Can you describe? Tell us a little bit more about that. You're talking about a specific building that was part of NYCHA that was demolished.
No, that was not part of NYCHA. This was a building at 500 West 28th Street. It's right on the corner, 28th Street and 10th Avenue. Somehow it was accidentally demolished. It's not a NYCHA building, but it tells you what can happen here.
Right.
To this day, that building has not been rebuilt. It's a part of Community Board 4's affordable housing plan.
Gotcha. Okay.
And of course, affordable housing is unaffordable. We have to remember, when people talk about low income housing, they're talking about $46,000 to $90,000 a year. And that's gone up in 1 year from $87,000 last year to $9,000. So when people keep talking about we need to do low income housing, let's understand and let's start using the numbers. That's how they get away with everything. Everyone thinks they know what low income housing is. You need to look at the AMI for this city, and it just keeps rising. And by the way, $90,000, you can actually live in NYCHA yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't be that surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was Rob that thought to use zip codes or something other than, I mean, the way they figure affordable housing is just a tool, a trick. The letter that Layla had put a form letter together and some links for everybody. I put it on a Google Doc. I just loaded up in the chat. Feel free to write, email the folks at NYCHA. Tell them you're outraged. Tell them you're against it. I think there's a couple links there that help guide you. And Lydia's here too. She's been supporting the fight. A lot of Chelsea residents have been very supportive in this fight, and Renee's talking about it's for everyone to get involved. It's very important that we do. And
John,
moving on. Go ahead.
I did see hands. Adalki, John, and Lydia.
Sure.
Adalki.
Yeah, we can jump into a few questions. Who was first?
Adalki.
Okay, Adalki, go ahead.
No, I actually grew up in that area in Elliott Chelsea houses, and I have friends that went to high school with me there, so I know that area really well. And for you to say that there's an accidental demolishing of a building, and if you look at that area, that's the whole gallery district. I don't think that was accidental. Just knowing that area is just, it's too, so, but I would love to kind of chat with you guys offline and just talk a little bit more. But yeah, let me know how I could be helpful. We could draft some letters and try to get folks to be involved.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
I meant, I should say that when I was saying accidentally, I should have put quote unquote, because no one accidentally demolishes anything around here. This is prime real estate.
Hey, if they're wiping out a whole nation state, they'll do anything. So, John, who's next? Alex, is that
John Leva? John Leva.
Go ahead, John.
How you doing? First of all, Renee, I had a class with Renee. I love Renee. I love Renee. Renee is amazing. But I want a particular question, right? Right now, I'm fighting against this BMT redevelopment. They want to build like they said up to like 12,900 affordable units. Now it's down to 7,000. I mean, about 8,000 or whatever. And no developer has been identified yet. They're still just in the pre-GPP, which we're fighting that. We're trying to get a ULUP or whatever so to have at least a. Anyway, they've enticed the Red Hook houses, which is about a mile away, right? With $200 million. And my question is, where's this 200 million? Because you can't say, well, the developers are kicking it in because they haven't been identified yet. They've just said that they've come up with $200 million out of nowhere. And some people don't even think it's real. Some people say maybe it came from City of Yes money or whatever. But the fact is that they pull out this money out of nowhere. Like when they did Guanas, they had 250 million or something like that for the NYCHA houses by them. And now they're doing the same thing here. But I don't know what the particulars were over there. What's really interesting here is that it's not the developers, because you would think, okay, the developers, they come in with big money or whatever. No, this is still pre-development stage. So it's city money somehow. And how can they just come up with $200 million? Can you guys answer that? Like, I'm trying to figure that out.
Anybody want to take a crack at that?
Well, the city does have the money. I mean, $200 million could be what Red Hook has already had, but at the same time, you're going to have to look deeper. Is the money some past money due that the state was holding, whether from the federal government? Because for the past 13 years, because of Superstorm Sandy, they've been going through a lot of, and I mean a lot of reconstruction of that development. So I don't know where the money comes from, but you should ask them that. Who's the one who said where's the $200 million coming from? Who said that?
Well, that's the thing. The EDC. They haven't said where it's coming from. They just said $200 million. The thing is, right, that they're using that. That's what some people are saying. Well, they would do that money anyway, and they're just saying that to get their vote for the project, which they're going, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just a weird thing. Like, where's this money just popping out from? And I of course they have the money, but if they have the money for that, then where's the money for other projects? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Good point. You should ask them that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Alex? Yes. Lydia and then Renette.
Okay. Lydia, go ahead.
You're on mute, Lydia.
No, I just want to say that, everything that Renee says and more so, but, one of the biggest problems we have is that we need more voices in the room reminding people that NYCHA, a failed, corrupt organization by any standard, is somehow charged with deciding the futures of the tenants and the community. I mean, who the hell would put that power into their hands? And the answer is that our elected officials are not being responsible and they are not listening. And I'm wondering, what happened at Reese houses? Were those votes supported by the elected officials? Because, we are like in a crisis of the tenants not being heard or seen. And that's just completely something we should not be putting up with. And I think we all have to support each other. That's why I'm encouraging people from all the different NYCHA groups to come, and speak about this project in Chelsea. And likewise, we should all be speaking out together when you guys are up on the block. So I just want to say that I think there needs to be more organization around that. Maybe, John, you can do that because you're good at that.
Thank you, Lydia. And that's perfectly said. Very good. Alex, who's next?
Renette and then Marquis.
Renette? Oh, Marquis with us.
Renette, you're on mute.
Just have a question. I just want to say thank you, Renee, for that presentation. I fully agree with you. My aunt lives in Tompkins Projects in Brooklyn, and I have another cousin that lives in Langston Hughes Projects in Brooklyn. We have seen a lot of rat impact take over here in the Brooklyn projects. the prioritization is going on, but it's somewhere in Tompkins and Langston Hughes. I don't think they've came to a priority meeting yet, but they're being fixed up, but they're doing half-step work. They're moving them out their apartments into other apartments. And I just want to know how is they saying they're fixing up the apartments and they're fixing up everything but not the bathrooms. The apartments are worse than they was when they moved them out. I don't understand that.
This is interesting, Renette. Sounds like something similar they're doing over at Chelsea. I think Renee can speak more about that. But let me ask you, they a rat pack, and they've
No, my aunt
they're
said
voting.
that they've been approached, but they're just having meetings, but they're not really. It's just in the air right now.
Yeah. Do you need folks over there to discuss? Maybe this is where we can kind of connect and maybe there's other housing, public housing that voted against the Rat Pack too. And I was hoping they'd be on. And maybe you need some folks over there from these other housing that to discuss their experiences.
Yeah, I think I would like to I would like to talk to someone about that because they're moving them. They're saying that they're coming and saying asbestos is in the floors and they'll move them into other apartments.
Right.
And they're fixing the place. And then when they move them back in, they raise their rent.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I'll let the folks respond and then we'll go to Manny's focus and Marquis. I'll let Renee, you want to start the response? You want to respond to that or have any thoughts?
No, because I don't know enough about the situation. I don't know if it's under PACT or not.
Okay. Marquis, any thoughts?
No, I'm sorry. I put my hand up by accident.
Okay.
Unless you're calling on me to speak.
Okay. Manny, any thoughts on that?
So she was saying that she was having issues with the asbestos and are you under rag conversion right now, ma'am?
No, they're not quite yet. They're discussing it.
They're discussing it. So it's still, if given that they're discussing it, you're still Section 9, you guys still have a right to all of those repairs, right? NYCHA has a lot more excuses instead of service for what they collect and the federal dollars that they get. We have to really recognize how we are empowered by law in order to make decisions with NYCHA and have them demand for their transparency. We also, like someone said, I think it was Miss Andre who stated about their corruption. And so what we are fighting is a corrupt system. What we're seeing here, what NYCHA has done in New York City is it has evolved redlining and sharecropping with us. They still receive billions of dollars from the federal government. That's not counting state and city funds. And they have manipulated that for their benefit. We have to be stronger at challenging it. We have to be more vocal at challenging it. And we also have to understand, and I know that someone stated about having a stronger presence in these locations, we do need to team up and make sure that we accommodate that presence.
Yeah. Any thoughts on coercive how you might coerce the NYCHA to make those repairs? Any thoughts on what you've done to push them to make those repairs? Besides, I guess you've been to your council person. What other ideas? I mean, here we got council people that are for the demolition. I don't know if Renette, if you've been in touch with your council folks there or not.
Yes.
If I may jump in here, because I think what makes a great TA and what we have in this panel of TAs is doing the research and doing the homework, right? Before we can go to our city council, our congressperson, we have to fully understand exactly what's going on at our development. And good TA presidents make sure that their managers give them frequent reports, that there are physical needs assessments that are being done at the development. When we understand all of the issues and the amount of money that it costs to address those issues, we can then go to NYCHA to find out how much money is available for this development. We can then go to city council and say, we're short 20 or $2 billion. Can you allocate capital funds to our development? But it's about being an informed advocate. That is the key. And it's about making sure that we're supporting TA presidents to be able to stand in that position.
If I could help Renette with a couple of steps for her to get progress on her repair. One, make sure that you have a work order for every single disrepair that you have. Take pictures of it. Make sure that you take all of the pictures that you can of it. Pick the ones that are most exposing and the ones that if you would see in the headline, that's what you put into your email. You put a timeline on it and say, hey, I've been here with this condition. If you have family members, children, you bring that up into it. You go to your management office and you get the property manager's email, your housing assistant's email, your super's email. You also go to your council members, you get their emails, the ones who represent the constituency, right? And then you send out an email with all of those pictures and circulate it. Also get the news. Get some news on it. Monica Morales, Channel 7, whoever you can get, and put it on the CC as well and send it out, right? NYCHA's kryptonite is attention, transparency, and documentation. Include those in your presentation, and in a week you will have it. Also, John, if you have her number, you can share. I mean, if you have my number, you can share it with her, and I can help her put something together to get you some results.
That's wonderful, Manny. And then with that, Manny, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about you. Also, I wanted you to talk about, we were at a hearing and you were exploring, you had a specific procedural things that NYCHA and related was not following.
John, I'm sorry. John, I'm sorry. Did you see the hand from Damianti?
No, I didn't. Damianti, let me go to Damianti, and then we'll get right back to that point, and then you can have the floor. Damianti, go ahead.
Yeah, Manuel had a great idea what he's talking about, create documentation about everything that you think is not working, and then meet with the people and talk about how and what. So I have been participating in these monthly meetings here, and I've been saying that if with NYCHA and the whole system, the way it's been set up, there's just so much money being spent without much of a result being seen. So I had talked about why not create a pilot program, one building at a time, the community, people who live in the building, they take on responsibility of doing the work that needs to be done in that building, and based on that, get the funding through through the elected groups, whoever is representing that particular area. I know it's going to be a lot of work for the people who live in the building, but I see here so many of those who are joined today and also keep joining every month. They are working so hard on this thing here. Then rather than just talk about it, just bring it up as a grievances, why not just say we're going to do it ourselves, because whatever is in the box is not working. So we got to get rid of that box. I mean, the activism that we need to have is, again, of course, I'm just talking because I'm not being that active, but this is what I've been sharing and been talking about it and sharing and writing about it and all that. These things need to be done perhaps like one small co-op building at a time. When I lived in a small co-op, we managed our co-op. We did not go and get a managing company to do it for us. So create your own managing company in a small, maybe it's a 6-story NYCHA building where there are only like 50 tenants who live there. But I think whatever is being done doesn't work. A lot of money being spent, our money, your money, every taxpayer's money being spent, and this is all going at the very top. It's not trickling down to where the work needs to be done. And when I hear about all these conversations, really makes me kind of mad about it. Like, what's wrong with all of us? Why can we not say we're going to manage our own affairs? You cannot do it. Let's manage our own affairs. That's all I wanted to say. Again, I've said this before many times. Sound like a broken record, but I think is a reminder. Like, we're going to take the challenge on, and we're going to do it ourselves. There are a lot of people who know how to do construction work, how to do repair works, who live in NYCHA housing, and you can certainly get some volunteer advocacy groups to help you with any design, structural, or whatever other issues. People can come together and do something about it. But the organization has to happen at the ground level where people live and who are living there. They're the ones who need to create their own community, small community, and say, we're going to do it, and then gather people around, whoever can help you with it.
This is a great idea. And it goes to what we spoke to quite some time ago, and I've been wanting to put through is we called it the hurt committee, where cosmetically we can go in and do what we want. We can paint the walls, we can do when it comes to other fixes, that's a little bit more complicated, boiler, that sort of thing. You need the NYCHA, well, the landlord NYCHA, to sign off on it. And
John,
I think
it's not complicated. Boilers get put in the buildings by engineers and architects all the time.
Right.
So that's where you need to bring in somebody who knows what has to be done. Of course, as I said, there are pro bono people who do some pro bono work on these things, across the communities. So you just bring in the people who you think need it. Of course, painting and all that easy. Of course, kitchen cabinets don't work. The light bulbs that fail, the light bulbs that are not in the stairway. It kind of tugs at my heart to think about that a person was killed because the light bulb in the stairway was not there. And that's how you start to think about, like, who was responsible for the light bulb? Maybe the people who live there, just go and change the light bulb.
Right.
Don't wait for NYCHA to come and do it.
Yeah. When I say complicated, one second. When I say complicated, I mean getting sign-offs. I mean, it's will they sign off on a group of tenant managing their thing? I mean, in order to do the work, some of this work, some of it requires
create a pilot program. Say we want to do this way, and sign off, meaning you just need funding to do it. There may be some community-based businesses who can provide you with light bulbs or with a faucet. Those things can be, again, obtained for free. Don't wait for NYCHA to do it. I mean, in my own house where I live, I don't wait for somebody else to come and do for me. I have to go and do it myself. So every person who lives in a particular small building where you're creating a pilot program, they just do it themselves. Okay? Self-help.
John, I have a fast question. Do we have time for two hands, John and Adalki?
Yes. Adalki, go ahead.
I just want to say we have to look at in the history where people have done the brick and mortar themselves in the Bronx when the things were burning. We have to remember that when things get really tense, people don't wait anymore and they take accountability into their own hands. And I think that for a long time, I always felt that NYCHA could do it themselves. The funding is the only thing that's lacking. These people are smart. These people are courageous to be able to stay there, to be able to do all the things that they can. But I think in order for that to happen, there has to be serious organization. There has to be serious communication within floors, serious communication within buildings. And that takes time to build that. Not everybody gets along, and that's in every building that people organize. But I think you guys have the ability of people power that no other housing team has in the city. But that's going to be a decision that you guys have to take. And I'm not speaking, taking off my right to counsel hat, I'm speaking for myself right now. I think that housing right now, we are in a crisis. Right? How much are we going to wait for folks to respond? It's up to you guys. You guys are the folks living there. You guys decide. That's it.
Yeah.
John Leva.
Layla, go ahead.
As a person that cares deeply about affordable housing, very passionate about just affordable housing NYCHA, these projects are the best example of affordable housing that we have. And I really, really have wanted to be a part. I just don't know how to be involved. Like I don't live in one, but I believe like that should be the cornerstone of our fight for affordable housing. Like if we get that right, I think that's why they don't want to get it right, because then it sets a bad precedent, right? So how can somebody like me be more supportive and fight? Because like if I go to one building, they might want RAD-PACT. I think it's a bad idea, but who am I to tell them? So that's just my question. How do I become involved in a way that, with you guys leading it, but just, I don't know what to even fight for.
We'll start putting you on emails, that's for sure at this point, but
please.
Anybody want to respond?
Could I do want to just dispel some of these these misguided assumptions. So public housing residents have fought. We have fought and gained legislative rights to resident management, to resident councils representing us. We have Section 3 of the HUD Act, which mandates, these are economic rights, which mandate that we are trained, employed, and contracted with. What we are fighting is a political structure and a dominant structure with an industrial structure. You know how some cities are known for industry, a specific industry, power, or farming, or whatever it is. New York City is known for construction and real estate. And that is who we're fighting. What we saw not too long ago was Black Lives Matter with police brutality. We have a Black Lives Matter circumstance here with housing brutality. And that is not a hyperbole. They are consistently re-regulating through administrative processes, re-legislating through emails, our rights, and they're taking a population who is not well-versed in these aspects and just with nuances wrangling our rights around us or just straight out denying it. This leads all the way up to the New York HUD's office, where I have evidence of that particular thing happening, and I have been in the middle of NYCHA weaponizing the New York City's Department of Investigations, the NYCHA OIG department, where they were focused on me in regards to who sourced a video instead of what the video content stated, which it evidenced corruption in NYCHA's manipulation of residents' rights to organize and to have say. When you see in it with the demolition in Chelsea, where they manipulated the working group by adding a whole lot of outside voices and minimizing resident input. They manipulated a survey, which they were promoting it as the resident's choice. And then when you have them who, the residents themselves, who did a door knocking campaign and had a press release that they put out their own petition showing a counter to it, here they go again, revolving around it, right? So what we're seeing is housing brutality. We're short. We're a couple of steps away from seeing us in the street against this. But the one thing that this threatens, that has us so confined, is our housing situation, where we feel threatened by this housing authority kicking us out, evicting us. We have families to raise. We have children that we have to be responsible for, right? But what we do have also that works against us is a lot of allies who are not familiar with what we have achieved already. We are a resilient group, and everything that we have now is not a charity. We earned it through the fight, and we're earning it through this fight right now. And so I do, respect all the ideas, but we do have to understand we're there. We have done these things, and they have, again, politically. I will say this last thing to close it out, just to give it context. During the COVID pandemic, NYCHA is 4% of the city population and resulted in 7% of the deaths at the pinnacle of the COVID pandemic. At the time, Andrew Cuomo was governor. And Andrew Cuomo used to be a HUD secretary under Bill Clinton. It was under Andrew Cuomo where they made it Before I say that, the Treasury Department had put out an FAQ, which goes through a clearance policy, saying that it may be a fair housing violation to obstruct public housing residents' access to ERAP funds. New York State was the only state under Andrew Cuomo that made that made public housing eligibility for ERAP funds illegal. Illegal. That, to me, for a global pandemic to do that to a population is the equivalent of legislating slavery. And that's what happened in this state. And so when we start talking about what is our opposition is the state and city itself.
Yes.
NYCHA. And
Yes.
so I think
Sure.
that was my presentation as well. So I'm
No,
sorry
no, that's
for
no.
that impact, but yes, thank you for the opportunity.
No, that's very, very clear. We'll go to Damu, and then why don't you also, Ray has an idea of where we can get some extra funding too, and I wanted you to speak to that technical issue that I brought up, and then and anything else you have, then we'll let Marquis have the last word, and then we'll need to start thinking about closing the meeting out. But I'll hang in there as much as you want. Damu, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just very quickly, we know that NYCHA population who live in NYCHA housing is over 500,000 people. And when you compare that with any towns, any cities in America, it's like bigger than many towns and cities in America. They have their own mayors. NYCHA population can elect its own mayor across they can come across all of the units. They come together and they elect their own mayor and they get their own funding, and then they can do whatever they need to do with their own funding. They can have their city council, they can have their legislative council who can decide what needs to be done. I'm just throwing it out because it just makes me feel really upset that how can 500,000 people are not able to be, they don't have any representation, they're not heard. And this is a union, is a town, is whatever you call it. People have to be heard. People have to be listened. After all, as I know this morning, we still have democracy.
Yeah, thank you.
I think about that. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we do. That's the problem.
Yeah. Manny, getting to that technical question, we were at a table during the hearing, and you said that they were not following procedure. You want to elaborate on that? Have you explored that a little bit more? Is this something that legally we can challenge? And also, that's another last question too, the legal aspects. Where are we? Go ahead, Manny.
So just to put it in context, I don't know if you remember, there was a raid that happened in February of 2024, the largest raid in the history of the DOJ for a single day, and it happened in NYCHA, bribery and extortion. There was also hearings on a recent hearing at the DOI, and the constant testimonial of NYCHA's testimonial when they point to resident inclusion is the Citywide Council of Presidents. We have several resident councils who have put in a resolution denouncing and dissolving that organization because NYCHA created it and manipulated it. And they're using that as a citywide wall to separate us from our ability to impact their housing policy making and their financial decisions. These financial decisions also lead to a lack of a word when it comes to the operational procedures, when it comes to conversions of public housings that they're really forcing in a very abusive manner. Also, the economics of it, where we have economic rights. NYCHA has been identified by the comptroller in 2020, that between 2010 and 2020, they expended $19.8 billion of contract funding, right? Each one of those dollars triggers the economic rights federally legislated that requires for them to meet quotas on training, employment, and contracting, something that they have reached 0%, right? Just off of the contracting under legacy regulations when they were in place when that came out, 10% of the contract value was supposed to go to Section 3 business concerns. 0% has done that. So just off of Section 3 business concerns, we lost $2 billion in economic investment into our community just over that last decade. Imagine since the legislation was out. And the way that they do that is by referring to the citywide resident group that they created without the residents. That separates us from our ability to be impactful and steer these investments back into our communities. And so, you know, we're following the procedures to dismantle this, and not only NYCHA, but we have a political entity who is, I guess, well funded campaign-wise to make sure that these things stay in place. I'm hearing relevant council members coming into these spaces trying to make subtle cases for privatization in his area, and sounding like a buffoon, truthfully, right? He's getting the facts wrong. He's mischaracterizing us, and then he's trying to misappropriate his authority in selling us down the river, right? Because if the moment that any demolition happens in New York City, it's going to result in more across the city. It's going to have a deep impact. And just like these conversions have. And I want you guys to know, the first privatization happened in Queens, but that was the last privatization that happened in Queens, and that happened through our organizing. And so we organized and we're able to push them out. We organized, we're able to construct our own district down here. And now we're organizing to eliminate this citywide resident group that NYCHA used with the New York HUD's office, a complicit blind eye to it. This is corruption at high levels that we are fighting, and we really do need support.
Yeah, I'm glad you express it this way, because it's really hard to express, really hard to understand what's really taking place, and I think you really give that a good shot there. When you say the councilman, what councilman were you referring to in your area?
Not in my area. I'm saying relevant to the topic here,
Okay.
one of the primary topics here. I'm not going to be, finger pointing,
Gotcha.
because I don't want to make it, but you can see it at the last DOI hearing, his discussion, his misunderstanding on how the police structure at public housing works, right? And how he tried to leverage that as a selling point for privatization, which is very harmful.
Yeah, we have very few friends there. I see Chris Banks and Chris Marte very supportive. I see some good solid support there, but outside of that, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it elsewhere. And
I agree.
maybe we sort of need to wrap this up. Ray,
Renette has a hand up, John.
okay, Renette.
Just Mr. Morales, I thank you for that. But I think that a lot of NYCHA tenants don't even know what you're speaking on. And I think they need to be educated, and you would get more support from them. Because a lot of them is not educated about what's going on in NYCHA, or a lot of this is new to me, and I organize every day. So I know if I don't know it, I know they don't know it.
That's a real good point. I've spent some time getting signatures on petitioning. Luana and myself went out door knocking, and it's an interesting experience. And I've certainly been involved with other petitioning. What I'm seeing is some people don't believe it's going to happen. They kind of stay within their bubble. Some people don't know what's going on, and some people are interested, but they didn't know some of the details. And there's a lot of people that would be willing to get involved. Do I have that correct, Luana? Yeah. And Ray, why don't you pop in here? Tell them that about the Stock Transfer Act, what we're pushing, and what's going to bring some funding. And you are pushing for funding, not only for healthcare issues, but for public housing.
Okay, I know that our time may be short, and let me make this quick. First of all, let me say to the Midtown South group, John and Alex, thank you so much for the incredible support you are giving to get this bill passed. It is so important. You recognize it. You were terrific at the press conference that we held in front of the New York Stock Exchange last week, or on the 23rd. Here's the issue. We're pushing a resurrection of a law that restores the stock sales tax. It's a 1/10%. You buy a toaster, you pay almost 9% tax in New York City. You sell stock, you pay, or buy and sell stock, you pay no tax. What this would generate is billions and billions of dollars, okay, in revenues. And if we pass this bill, simply what it would mean is it would be an estimated $13 to $20 billion every single year to come in to do social good, what we call free money, all right? Now, what would it mean for affordable housing? There is a 10% of all the money collected would go to two groups, NYCHA and the New York City and the New York State Homes and Community Renewal. So it would be cut in half. So that would be a minimum of $650 million going to NYCHA every single year. And it's expected or estimated that it'll be a lot more money that would come in. All right. So what I'm anxious to do is to get a number of the resident council leaders. I wish I tried to get in touch with Danny Barber, who I finally managed to talk to a couple of times, who's the head of the overall residential councils, to be able to get a meeting with resident councils to talk about them getting involved in supporting this bill. I think would be very, very powerful. So right now, the leaders in what we're doing are faithd.org. Read BS Need, and you are absolutely one of the best. Okay, it was terrific. I got to give you all credit. I'm serious. I'm so happy. One of the first groups I got in touch with was your group, the Midtown South, and meeting John. And it was by chance because I went to a demonstration that you all had to save the housing. And this was I'm so happy that I went to that demo and met you all.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. And thank you. Manny, you have a question?
Manny has his hand up. Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to bring some clarity to that. So that citywide council organization and that representative is what we're talking about. That is the wall. That is the illegitimate citywide resident group created by NYCHA, which is why that's the black hole. When you reach out to them, you're not reaching out to us, you're reaching out to NYCHA. So please understand that is the illusion of confusion that we are fighting against to dismantle. And that's the reason why we are so inundated by all of this, because of that illegitimate resident, that illegitimate organization that NYCHA created. And they recently attempted to recognize it as a resident council for the city. I know that may, you may not understand what that means, but what that means is that they take away the power of 193 resident councils currently recognized, and they could just run everything through this NYCHA created resident organization. That is the manipulation. So please, don't be fooled. I do understand we need to have more education on that, but we are currently in that fight so that we can restore our power to our community. It's not that he doesn't understand or that they don't understand, it's that they are a part of the problem. They had no refunds on the sellouts. I will end it with that.
So what do you think is the solution to getting to this bill? What do you think? How should they proceed then, if not with the councils?
That council, you have 193 recognized resident councils or tenant associations that have the legislative power to represent their community. This other citywide organization that you're reaching out to is the black hole. So you need to reach out to the 193 resident councils that have the actual ability to represent their community. This is NYCHA's roadblock.
Yeah. So you're saying reach out separately. Maybe that's Ray. Maybe that goes to his frustration. You talked about Danny Barbara, and you seem to have communicated with him. Maybe that goes to his frustration. Maybe he feels like he's swallowed up in his black hole. According to you, he's sincere about some. Could that be what you're?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I think if any of you folks, and I'm going to follow up, I definitely want to talk to those of you who are heads of the resident councils that are on this Zoom meeting. But Danny, I saw him interviewed by Marsha Kramer about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he did a terrific job outlining the problems with NYCHA. But in talking to Danny, quite frankly, he's very tired. He's worn out. I felt he was on the verge of basically saying, I don't think I can do anymore. I give up. It was kind of sad, actually, okay, because he's done a lot in the past. But I definitely, the resident councils are critical. If we can start getting 1, 2, 3 on board, passing a resolution that they support the bill, this would be terrific for what we're doing. And again, I understand there's a shortage of time here, but I'm anxious to talk and meet or do a Zoom with just the heads of various resident councils to try to get something moving on that front.
So we have 193 councils. That's a lot of work. How, Manny, how do you, or Marquis or anyone, think about proceeding? Do you have these contacts of each of them, or do we need to, you have?
So, I think, first of all, a packet would definitely be helpful. And I think, there's a lot to be said. It is also very difficult to speak after Manny when Manny drops so much knowledge. But I think, what Manny keeps reminding us of, and we have to keep in mind with every stage of this fight, right, is that it's not about the lack of funding. We need funding. There's no question about that, right? But it's about the political will. When you look at public housing historically, right, and you look at the population that lives in public housing, we moved into public housing as they were destroying our homes in the name of urban renewal. And so what we're seeing is somewhat of a repeat of that. And so as Manny keeps stressing, we have a political fight. And what was critical, right, is for us to begin to organize politically, to begin to consolidate our vote or voice as one. We have a sleeping giant, so to speak, and I hate using that phrase, but the reality is we have 400,000 public housing residents, right, who are impacted by 101 plus issues. And so it's not that public housing residents don't care, it's that we're constantly fighting. We don't get to take a break and sit back. So groups like this and what we do, right, we also need to spend a lot of time on focusing on how do we organize politically, right? Because it's our elected officials who are making these choices. When the developers see our land, they see dollar signs. And it's nothing for them to give a politician $20,000, $30,000 to get them to sign off on billion-dollar deals.
Can
Yeah,
I just
they sell out cheap. Go ahead.
I think some things I'm hearing has not changed from the 10 years I used to do participatory budgeting. And that is that there's always going to be a political will to come up forward. But how can we be creative, right? In times where there was no way of documenting how people were living, Jacob Riis pulled out a camera, right? How can we be creative to hold people up to their own standard, right? I think there was one time that we had a political person come inside an apartment and stay in there that one night. I don't know if it was de Blasio.
That was the disaster that ultimately led to the demolition of Cabrini Green. When they did it here in New York, it was Donald Trump's party planner who he hired for HUD, right? And that also turned out to be a disaster. All roads are always going to point back to the people who are making the decisions right, to demolish and not fund public housing. The solution is always going to be the residents, but we need our allies and our organizers to think creatively about how do we, again, build that political power, because when we build the political power, we get the political will, and we're not fighting this fight every single year. Our elected officials need to either come from public housing, or they have to be very clear that we will put them in and just as easily take them out if they don't follow. The other thing that I'll uplift that Manny is saying, or that I'm saying rather, is that when we go to these elected officials, we have to stop asking, what are you going to do for us? It is a job, and it's time that we design those job descriptions and force them to campaign, to do an interview to see how they are going to fulfill the needs that we have outlined in a job description. So yes, we need money, but before we get that money, we desperately need the political will.
Yeah. Yeah, it just seems like these are political stunts to get what they would, to gentrify and destroy the public housing. It seems like most of them are have the same mind, and that's what we need to do is fight from the ground up and not think about what they're going to do for us, and more or less coerce them to do things for us, demand, right?
Is there any way we can show up to people's houses with pots and pans and annoy them enough to they could get out of their house and do the work? So that's what I'm trying to figure out. How can we coordinate things that are like small village things that we do already? My family's from the Dominican Republic. People burn tires when they are in a state of like trying to stop traffic to get their attention heard. So my thing is, what list of demands do you guys have, which I bet you guys already have, but how can we like document that when you are asking those demands, they're not really even listening to you, or they're proposing something else, to say like, this is what we demand and you're actually on this seat because we actually put you on this seat. Are you really representing us, or who are you representing at this point? Right. Yeah. And if that's not it, then it's like, whose side are you on? And that's where the people power has to meet. But in order to get that people power, that there needs to be a lot of teach-ins, just telling people about the history of knowing that fighting back is normal. Fighting back is how we got these laws. But a lot of times I would just say my mom's generation is very Pentecostal and very afraid of joining things. So I'm just thinking of that generation and how we can bridge those generational things of just educating people of how we got certain simple rights of people voting, right? But in order to do that, that takes time. And I just don't want to take too much time because I know we're a little over and I see John's head. So I'm gonna stop.
No.
I think Manny, but this is again, right? Like this is again Manny's point, right? Like that's happening. I started a group called the Residents to Preserve Public Housing, and the first thing we did was we went on the road giving workshops on RAD, PACT, and the trust, and then we took it a step further and we turned it into a trainer program. And this is why we have leaders like Renee, leaders like Zulay, and leaders like Manny, right? Because and they have pushed back on RAD, right? They have pushed back on the resident leadership in the name of we will not allow this to happen at our development. And I was fighting hard not to bring this up because I don't want to sort of be contentious in this space. But one of the most important things to do is to follow resident leadership, particularly at their respective developments, right? Because what we've seen throughout our movement to stop the RAD and PACT is we have seen other people come into these communities and pretend to know what they know best. Or worse, we've seen, right? We've seen our public housing communities be leveraged for other legislation, right? These big organizations supported RAD and PACT just to get good cause passed. Now, I'm someone who is directly impacted by both good cause and public housing. But what happened was those two got pinned against each other, and that's because they didn't follow resident leadership. So when we talk about building up power, it's also about building up the residents who are doing the work, standing behind them and bringing them the resources that they need to be able to take this fight on and on and on.
Yeah, this opens up so many other questions and thoughts and discussions. And we could go on for another hour, 2 hours, I know. And I'd love to be here with you, and I'd almost do it. But I think what we first of all, I want to ask you guys next steps, and also maybe Damu, this fits into our idea of a housing policies and model. You have to let me know how you feel about that. Damu, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Yes, the housing policies is something that a lot of people have done good work here. And as you have suggested previously, that we make a small group and then we kind of see like what are the things that work has already been done, and then we expand on that with everybody's ideas. And I heard some great ideas here today. And of course, Ray Rogers, that's about financing. Where did the financing come from? I think that's also important. If the city council is not going to give you money, or the government is not going to give you any money, then let's say, how do we get this bill passed where that money could be specifically allocated to some of the housing issues, not just NYCHA, but other affordable housing as well. So for that, I think we need a lot of activism at all levels, not just from NYCHA residents also, especially the bill that needs to be passed, especially for that. It has to be across the city, across the board, because there are a lot of powerful interests who's going to, of course, oppose that. And maybe all the way to the federal level, they'll oppose it. But this is something that also needs to be done. Not necessarily one following the other. I think these are simultaneous things that can be done with different groups of people.
Okay.
And yeah, so let's try and see if we can have a housing group, and then if we also can talk about the financing group, and they can work independently, and sometimes they can overlap each other because the money has to be used in a place where people would like it to see results.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest something. I'll go to Lydia. She's got her hands up, and then we'll finalize the meeting with you guys on last word. I'm going to, of course, we need more discussion. We can do it, another discussion next month. We can use an hour before this meeting and use our policy period to discuss this and vet it out and see how we want to proceed, how we want to pull this together. And we can always bring our findings, our recaps into this meeting, which might be good, might build power. And so that's a suggestion I have. I know we need to discuss it. So how we go about it, my door is open. We can
let me quickly add, the issue at hand right now is about Elliott housing, right? And of course, Renee had made a great presentation about it. I lived on north of Elliott housing, and I worked south of Elliott housing. So of course, every day I used to walk on 9th Avenue and saw everything happening. And I also served on the community board for 4 years, from 2008 to 2012. And we had many of our meetings happen at the Elliott housing. And of course, we also brought our projects for approval, my office projects for approval to the community board. Again, the meetings were Elliott housing. So while there's such great public spaces available, not just outdoor, but also indoor, why are not those being used by the community, which is typical across all the NYCHA projects? They have so much land around, and that's the reason the greedy eyes are upon the NYCHA housing, because they want to build something infill housing. And I'm so glad that gets turned down again and again, because the public housing space should be used for public, and not for the developers to make money. So I think maybe the Elliott housing is where the things kind of start, think about what happens there. I'm not with community board 4 anymore, but I have some friends who are still on the board of directors there. And I would like to kind of talk to my friends and influence them based on what's coming up there. I can try to do that.
Hey, John, really quickly, if you want to put your email into the chat, what will happen is it'll appear in the chat log that you can request from us. Send an email to hello@midtownsouthcc.org. Now, you don't have to, but it seems everyone here wants to stay in touch, so please do that. Thank you.
Yeah, and you should be able to copy that chat yourself, but
Yes, you can. Yes.
yeah, sometimes I have difficulty. Maybe it's just me. Lydia,
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
wanna make sure Renee and Manny get to speak, but I just want to say again, if you want to do something right away, you can come on Wednesday night at 6:30. There will be a DEIS presentation to Community Board 4, and you can speak out against what is going on in public housing. It is at 6:30 at 119 9th Avenue. I'm sure Renee will be there. I'll be there. FEC Against Demolition will be there. Other people will be there. Because again, I think we need to show up for each other. Maybe this group can see that kind of cross, NYCHA campus involvement. This is where a lot of power lies. And if we can unlock it, I think it'll really be something. So thank you. And thank you, Manny, for everything you informed us about today.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. And I think that's something we seriously have to consider is building connections with all these public housing. And we can, and I know a few, and I know you guys know a lot more than I do connecting wise. And those 193, I think that would be a good goal to bring us all together. So anyway, with that, I'll go ahead and go around the room with you guys. And we'll close out the meeting. Yeah, go ahead. Let's start with you, Marquis. Or Renee. He's chewing. Go ahead, Renee.
What I would say is these meetings have just started to happen they're coming. The next DEIS meeting is in Fulton. The Housing, Health, and Human Services Committee was in Elliott Houses, was there, but it has to be more than having a meeting. People have to be aware you're having a meeting. So if you're going there, you're also going to have to do outreach. That means the community board is going to have to do outreach. I could do some, but they're going to have to do more. So, at the last minute, when you're changing it from 33rd Street to now coming to Elliott Houses, and you're doing that with 2 days notice, it gets to be difficult. These things, if you want more tenants out, outreach has to be done. And that's on all levels. The things that we're doing, knocking door to door, putting leaflets and flyers, speaking to people constantly, that's what we're doing. So it's an all-out effort also to educate them on Section 9, and that's a lot of work. So we can use as much help as possible. Stop FEC Demolition, it's all in the chat as well. And also to make sure, because right now we're in a war, and it's like we're under siege. We have these people who are on our campuses trying to solicit people to call Eric Botcher, Tony Simone, Brad Hoyland Segal. This is a daily thing. We see them all the time, and this is where we're at in this struggle. We are at war, and that's what it needs to be thought of. War.
Renee, Lizette wants you to repeat the time of the upcoming meeting.
I'm doing it.
Oh, okay.
Great.
Okay.
Perfect, Renee. Perfect.
Renee, one question real quick. You need help with petitioning and stuff in the buildings for your next election?
It's not an election right now. Right now, we're going to the nomination process. That's what we're doing. The signs are already up on every floor in every building in this development. Everyone knows there's an election.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, there's a nomination. If there's more than one, it will be then the election. After 30 days notice, an election will be held.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't that liking to like your cabinet? Isn't that's what you're electing, right? You're pretty safe as far as your position, right?
Yeah, it's done. It's certified. I need to have the HUD minimum 5. We're trying to get a full board.
Right. And that's like your cabinet. You should be able to choose that, right? Or that's
No,
not
we're
what's
not able to choose that under anything.
Yeah.
Only if there's a vacancy and you don't have upcoming resident meetings, then you have the ability to make a choice.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But because we're having meetings, and we have been having meetings, we're going through the process. So we gave the 30-day notice. We're now having a nomination for the positions that are vacant. And then after that, if there's more than one person for the position, we will have an election given 30 days notice.
Okay, very, very clear. Thank you. Manny?
And just want to say very briefly, and I put it in the chat, what the one thing, if I had to ask for, that would have the biggest impact would be to fund persistent legal representation and the rights of residents, not just eviction rights or when you're at your crucial, but actually protecting the rights of residents, resident organizations, and making sure that compliance is held. And then the second thing is we really need to demand the resignation of NYCHA's executive class, because we keep saying NYCHA as if it's a faceless organization, when it's real people that are in these positions making these decisions and manipulating this whole process of 500 of close to, of over 400,000 predominantly Black and Hispanic residents. And they're doing so freely because it's 90% Black and Hispanic residents. And so I just wanted to leave off on that note. Thank you.
No, great note. Let me ask you, do you think when we discuss, like when we think about a legal team, I do think we need to build a legal team. I think we need to, in any of these actions against NYCHA, HUD, all those folks. But do you think there's a possibility or a benefit to looking at the different housing complexes together and building a legal team for all these folks?
A class action, yes.
Yeah.
Because remember, resident councils it's a federal right, legislated, not just regulated, legislated across the country. And so here, given we have right now 300,000 people, because of the conversions, it dropped down over 100,000 people, and we have 193 recognized residents, we do have the space and population to have a massive class action. But we do need to have the presence of legal representation on a persistent basis. That would help bring out people. But people are motivated. If they see lawyers are involved, we feel coverage. We feel like we have protection to go in and see what's going on. And that would also create a barrier between NYCHA's executive class that tends to lean, squeeze, and impose upon us their will instead of keeping compliance with our rights.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. So I'm seeing two strong actions so far. Legal team in touch with 193 and coalescing together in meetings with 193 folks, the different councils so far. And of course, we should write any kind of actions that we see that might be worthwhile exploring. And that should be a part of our next meeting, I think.
If I could add one dynamic to people, when you say the 193, let's not look at it as individuals. If you contact me, I'm going to reach out to my 11 or my 20, and that one's going to reach out to their 10, to their 5, right? And then we have to do the focus on the resident council, right? We have 1,100 elected resident council officers throughout the NYCHA district. So that can be our NYCHA 1%. If we were able to organize them, we can have at the spark, at the drop of a dime, 300 people, under a combined effort, showing up at places and, scaring people straight, so to speak, figuratively.
I like that idea.
Right.
That's what we did when we were running. We were petitioning for Renee in her elections. It's people just don't know, and they really need to know what's going on. And when they know, they get involved. I mean, people were running out their houses. We had them running out their houses downstairs to come and vote. So we know that, it's misinformation, it's racism, it's a whole bunch of other stuff. But at the same time, yes, our community is so insular that, it's hard for us. We have this fear of authority, so to speak, because we've been marginalized so long. It is like a slave master kind of relationship. And we need to get out of that mode and realize the potential of the power. That's how movements have changed this world. It's because people have realized that they were being, brutalized, like you said, Manny. And they realize that they have no other choice but to fight. Either you fight or you lay down and die. So the same thing with housing. You gonna give up or you gonna fight? What do you want to do?
I love that brutality analogy too. It's very good. I met two elderly ladies. Lynn and I met. We were doing some work over at the Bagel Place on 9th Avenue, near Bean and Bean down the block. It's a bagel coffee place. Two elderly ladies sat next to me. I overheard them. We chatted. They live over in Penn area. They were just they were so concerned about what they're doing about demolition, but it's amazing how they were so insulated and they knew about that, but they're not connected with us. They're not connected with the group. So I was able to make that connection. So it is a lot of reach out, and that's what we need to really focus on. And there's a lot of various communities that are really supportive, and we got to tap into those. And with that, Marquis, last word.
You know, earlier I said it was difficult to follow Manny, but the truth is he makes my job a lot easier.
Right.
I would just close with stressing the importance of following resident leadership, recognizing that while we may not live in public housing, we are definitely going to be impacted by what happens in public housing. The entire city is going to be impacted at a time where we should be looking at public housing for inspiration. We certainly should not be tearing it down. What is happening at Chelsea Elliott and Fulton is my inspiration about how residents are banding together and taking ownership over what's happening at their development. And Midtown South is a part of that example that we need to follow. We need to go to these TA presidents, ask them how could we help, let them lead, be behind them, and give them the resources and the support that they need to protect their home. I am proud and excited to be a part of this movement. I think it is critical that we merge all of our housing issues and have one major platform and fight. Housing is always going to be the number one issue, and that's why we have to band together. And again, if we strip away, well, let me say this. The conditions in public housing are severe, but the model that exists as public housing and what we have fought for and gained over the decades is something to be expanded to all forms of affordable housing. Prime example, and I'll close with this, affordability. When we hear affordable home for all, public housing answers that question. 30% of your income, that is what you pay. I like to see that number get even lower, but these are the type of things that we want, that we should be expanding across all forms of housing. So thank you for this opportunity to be here to speak with you. And I am looking forward to the next couple of decades to see how public housing turn out when it's in the hands of people like Manny, Renee, and Zulay.
Yeah, thank you. And I feel gracious that you guys come together here in
No,
this
I
space.
cannot. I've got to go do work today. I don't have any time.
Lydia, you're
I'm sorry. Sorry.
That's okay. So with that, I do appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate you joining me here, and I appreciate being a part and helping in some way. With that, we'll discuss at least another meeting. If we can do it in this space, we can do it in a separate hour, and sort of find some objectives that we want to pursue, and then we start to pull people together. We can discuss how we might our next steps as far as meeting and development. And I'm there with you, and thanks for having me there with you. And thanks for everybody being here at this meeting. A lot of people hung in there till the very end. I know we went way over, and there's just so much to discuss, and so much and this is so much deal with right now, and this is connected. And I think there's a lot of people understand that. And thanks for your constant activism, everyone.
John, can
With
I
that,
ask a quick question?
go ahead.
Manny, what did you say about the Berman lawsuit?
So I believe that the Berman lawsuit is what led to the 2019 Federal Monitor Agreement. First it was they did the Federal Monitor Agreement and they had positioned NYCHA for receivership, but the Federal Monitor Agreement was what pulled it out of receivership. And it had the 6 pillars: the lead, the pest, the hot heat and hot water, elevators, FARs, and mold. Right? I was missing mold. And so, you know, they have a lot of the progress that NYCHA has made has been disguised by the accelerated conversion and a forceful conversion process that they have engaged. So the numbers that you see reducing is because they have converted so many public housing developments. Now, we have started off in not started off, but in 2017, we had 346 developments. Now we're down to about 215. 193 has resident council representation and 22 do not. And I have confirmed those numbers yesterday evening talking to one of the directors that manages those, you know, that follows resident councils in NYCHA. And so that's a very recent number as of yesterday. But yes, that's what the Berman lawsuit is what resulted in the Federal Monitor.
Because I was saying that, I know we're getting off. I was thinking that they had agreed that the allegations that were made against them, NYCHA, having agreed that the allegations made against them, they settled that lawsuit, right? And they had received a whole bunch of money. It was only supposed to be for the projects related to the lawsuit, or was it supposed to see for NYCHA developments in totality?
Well, it was all of NYCHA that was in the lawsuit. It's all of NYCHA that's affected by the 6 pillars that we discussed. So there isn't any isolated developments in that lawsuit. It's you know, it's for the complete jurisdiction of NYCHA.
So what are you saying? They used that money for redevelopment, in other words?
No, the redevelopment is what reduced the numbers. Like, so the percentages that went down was, instead of them fixing the problem, they got rid of the problem through funding conversions from Section 9 to Section 8.
So basically so I don't know what happened to the money that was supposed to go to the rehabilitation of the NYCHA.
Well, NYCHA is a black hole when it comes to money. Real quick, NYCHA had $1 million. So the council member here, which is also the speaker, had secured $1 million for a computer lab installation, and NYCHA, through the scope of their project, reduced the value of the contract by 60%. So instead of $1 million, it was $400,000. I asked, using the rights of the resident council to budget transparency, they had to reveal that it was reduced by 600,000, and then they strategized a repurposing, right? Oh, we're going to repurpose this funds, and that was because there was attention brought to it, and that's because there's no follow through or consistency between the city allocating funds and NYCHA's scope of value when they create the contract. And so because there's no alignment there, they're able to do that. And so now my question is, how much of that funds, you know, city funds and state funds, have gone into the NYCHA black hole that nobody knows about?
Right, because that was $1 billion.
See, because now looking at the consistency of distribution, councilmatic funds are provided from a council office to a resident council. When it goes to NYCHA and it comes to us, that money, which would, if it goes to a nonprofit, would have to go through reimbursement, which means you have to pay for it and then reclaim it. When it goes to NYCHA, they provide that funds to the resident council fully, and that gets automatically accounted as resolved, right, from the city. And so the same happens with the city funds. Once they give it to NYCHA, it's resolved. There's no accountability for value or making sure that there's compliance and value from what was secured on the city level and goes to NYCHA. And so if they reduce this particular allocation by 60%, imagine what else may have happened. We are under attack. Public housing is under public housing. Let me say it better. Families who live in New York City's public housing is
Human
under
beings.
attack.
Human beings.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Thank
Just but right before signing off, Jessica, Kim, I know you've been hanging in there. I haven't heard a word from you. Any last questions, thoughts? Thank you for joining. Okay. Jessica? No? Okay, Kim? Okay. Shy? Okay. Having a coffee break? All right. With that, again, thanks.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm here multitasking. I am Kim Watson Benjamin from the New York City Public Advocate's Office. I'm the LGBT coordinator. All my information, I put it in the chat. Please keep me added to these meetings so that I can participate much better. This came on to me this morning and I just tagged on myself in it. This was so informative, and I look forward to all of this. Everything that I'm hearing, I've also, when it comes to Jacob Reese Beach and the complexes over there, I've been involved with that and trying to get things sorted out in those ways. The public officer, Jemani D. Williams, he have involved with the rallies at Fulton and Dungan Chelsea and certain areas, as you all know. Excuse me, he has produced the worst landlords list, and he is very on top of all the housing developments as we move forward. So thank you so much for having us again this morning.
Sure. No, thank you for being here. Yeah, Jessica?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I was on mute, but I was saying that I've attended one of your meetings before, and they're always extremely informative. I oversee over 8,000 affordable units, so hearing some of the similar pain points and concerns that we have on the development side is always very interesting, and I'm definitely open to exploring joining the committee or being on the board. So I did email the email address that was provided because I think we definitely have some common goals.
Oh, wonderful. And where are you from now?
Progressive Management of New York.
Okay. Yeah. And Progressive Management is a nonprofit?
It is a for-profit company.
And you own buildings, you say? Or you manage?
Yes, I work for the developer. I'm on the executive side.
Oh, and you were asking to join our board? Is that?
Yes. I did send an email, so hopefully I can get more information and understand where I can hopefully be the best fit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, John.
And when you say affordable, you talk about these 8,000 units, affordable housing. That's a really overused, tired, abused word. What do you mean by that?
So there are 60% or below AMI units. Housing subsidy is welcome. We also have HUD units with PBV vouchers, and we do have at least one development currently that has an open wait list. Believe it's Ocean View in Queens. It's on our website, which is progressivemanagement.of.new.net.
Okay.
Let me just make sure.
And we can refer folks there with vouchers and so forth.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because we have a lot of, I come across a lot of voucher users that can't get housing because it's, yeah. And
sure.
So you're real pro voucher users.
Yes,
Okay.
we are. Absolutely.
Okay. That's good to know. And okay. Thanks for coming aboard. Thanks for being here. How'd you find out about us, by the way?
I believe someone sent me the link. Yeah, I can't recall right now, but I was sent the link. And definitely, as soon as I saw the topic was about homelessness and housing, I wanted to make sure I was a part of it.
Cool. Very good. Thanks for being here.
For sure.
Okay. With that, I'm really going to go. And Rashida, I didn't hear a word from you And you've always got a great voice, and we'll have Rashida on to speak at our next, I think we decided on the next meeting, by the way. Rashida's got a lot of insight. You'll love her. And thanks for being here, Lisette. Love seeing you here. Even though I just see that picture's terrific. Always love seeing you out in rallies. I put you in a story. There you go. Yeah, okay. So with that, I'm signing off. I've got another appointment come in that I'm late for. Thanks, John. You'll be on the list for a closer, tighter meetings and development meetings. And we'll see what we can move forward, because we got to come together and fight. I'll see you later.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.